Hail, hail, and welcome to the first Celtic World-North America tactical review crossover show. This is one we've been really excited to make happen over the last few months, and perfect timing during the World Cup to do it. It's an odd time maybe for a live podcast on a Saturday night here, but it kind of shows, I think, what this channel is all about. Like, we're everywhere. Tonight, we're chatting with a couple of guys who are only about 11,500 miles away from us, or 18.5 kilometers. So admittedly, finding a time to make it work for everyone is difficult, but we did it. So we want to welcome Anthony and Paul and say thank you for getting up early on a Sunday
Absolutely.
to do this. Yeah, next time we do it, we'll switch roles. We'll be the morning guys.
Fair enough.
We'll stop me from drinking, but yeah. First, Chris, how we doing?
I'm all right. Yeah.
How's it feel doing a podcast on a Saturday night? It's a little different.
I mean, the schedule's a little off, but
yeah,
definitely. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it definitely threw me off today. I've been all out of whack with it, but and then welcome Anthony. Anthony from Tactical Review. It's good to have you on.
Yeah, very, very much so, Shawnee. Thank you for having us. I know you and Paul have been working behind the scenes to make this happen for a little while, and very happy to be on the show. Very happy to hand the hosting reins over to you. Maybe it's a home away thing. If you get the nighttime slot, you host, and the morning slot's just the guest. But I'm sitting here drinking my coffee, and it's very civilized. It's 9 a.m. in the morning. This is as civilized as it gets in Australia, because usually it's the middle of the night or late in the evening after a whole day's work. So obviously with the World Cup being on, early matches for us. So I was just saying before we came on air, sort of 3 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m. So a little bit unusual, but cracking beers at that time in the morning watching Scotland or Australia playing. But we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how both teams went from my point of view, supporting wise. But yeah, and I guess we'll touch on obviously everything like related to Celtic, what's going on there, and some of the Celtic players that are actually featuring at the World Cup and scoring goals, because there's been a few of those as well. So
absolutely,
yeah, we were on the other night, and that's when both Dyson scored and Trusty scored during the show, and we weren't watching, but Matt, who was on with us. Yeah. Matt's like, was that Trusty? So it was funny seeing the live reaction to it. But and then Paul, obviously welcome Paul. I've been chatting with Paul for years on social media, and then I was on with you with Gav a couple times. So it's good to have you on our show. Welcome.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be here. We've been talking about doing this kind of crossover for a long time, as you said. And then, I guess the time difference is hard. It's, as Anthony said, it's 9 a.m., it's 9 p.m., I think, with you guys. That is a bit of a challenge, but we're glad to make it happen. And mid-World Cup on your shores. And obviously, as Anthony touched on as well, Scotland and Australia in the World Cup. Well, we're in the World Cup. We've lost the Scots. We've lost the Scots this morning, unfortunately. We'll get into the guts of that in a bit. But yeah, brilliant to be on. And amazing the traction you guys have sort of built in the States from a Celtic point of view. And I guess we're well done on that basis. And we'll only continue to grow the channel try and get it on every show. We've obviously got a strong contingent that watch in the UK. You guys have really built it out in North America, and we've got a fair scattering in Australia and across Asia as well. So we've probably got a decent amount of the globe covered.
Yeah,
as the Celtic support tend to do. So yeah, delighted to be along. Keen to chat all things that we've touched down on the years across social media. As you say, Sean, we've been chatting on as Celtic fans that like beer long before Celtic World was even a twinkle in Gav's eye, I reckon. So there was a connection there long before we both tumbled.
Oh,
it's just like you
that
said,
was those internet gremlins we were talking about beforehand.
There it is. All right,
are you back?
You're back. We lost you for a second. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I feel like the Scottish fans and Australian fans too. I mean, I know for me, the one thing I noticed with the Australian fans was their anti-Trump chants, which I fully appreciate, and
absolutely
get on board with that. And then Scotland fans just, fucking drinking Boston Dry and just,
living up in Miami.
Traffic cones on all the statues and putting them everywhere, pretty much, which was just hilarious. But
we've got quite a disdain for our politicians in Australia. Like we smell bullshit from like 20 paces, so like we're usually quite quick to sort of call it out. So hence I'm not surprised to see the sort of the anti-Trump chants and things like that. And then I felt for Boston because they had a week of Scotland and it was like Tartan Army and fantastic, and obviously celebrating in a really, really positive manner, and really the soft diplomacy of Scotland to Boston has been amazing. Like they're talking about being sister cities with Glasgow now and all this sort of stuff. So it's quite amazing what can happen. So it's definitely one of the positive stories of the World Cup. The football performances not so much, but the off-field stuff's been great. But just feel for the Boston fans because the Boston people live in Boston, because obviously Scotland left and then England came in. So that's a little bit unfortunate. So it's like at least you sort of get a little bit of a juxtaposition of like what fans can be like from other nations. But no, it's been really good, and and I guess that's part of me is like, I mean, obviously I'm not there. Shawnee, guy who I've done stuff with A Celtic State of Mind and Celtic Down Under back in the day. He flew over there and he's been over there, and there's a few issues with like transport getting to and from games and stuff, but he's had an absolute blast. And I just wish that some of the performances on the park for Scotland would just have given those people who probably spent, talking off air how expensive it is to go to World Cup games, just actually a ticket just to actually go to the game, not including the airfares and the accommodation and everything else. But the performances were pretty lackluster. Obviously, the breaking news just before we came on air, is that Steve Clarke has resigned. Now that Scotland's officially out of the World Cup, but the performances were pretty drab. I mean, we had Haiti first game up; that was a must-win game, and we squeezed past with a deflected John McGinn shot. It's probably one of the worst shots John McGinn's ever had in his career, but it somehow managed to squeeze in, and that was all we could manage. Against 90 minutes for Haiti. So I guess if you were being hypercritical, the writing was on the wall from there. And just my biggest criticism of the Steve Clarke era is just Scotland's very passive. We just let teams dictate the tempo and dictate the play, and we sort of feel our way into games. And we kind of set up to try and counter and nullify whoever we're playing, whether they're better opposition or not. And I just kind of feel with the caliber of some of the players we have in certain key positions, like central midfield, or fullbacks, we just don't utilize them well enough. We've got McTominay running around like a donkey trying to, trying to press and do all these things when we want him on the ball in attacking positions to try and score as a goal. Our biggest fault or failing as a team is we don't have a centre forward. I know, Chris, you were talking about Lawrence Shanklin before, and it makes it difficult to support Scotland, but playing him up front by himself is just it was like a disaster class. Like, the guy needs to play in a two if you're going to play him at all. And to have him running up front against Brazil by himself, and he stayed on pretty much the whole match, which again, massive head scratcher for me. So there's just quite a few misses from a tactical sense, and and then, factor into that the mistakes. The Grant Hanley 1 minute into the Morocco match. McKenna getting dawdling on the ball. Hendry nearly got pinched for his goal, but obviously it was ruled a foul. It just, like I said, it was a hard watch. And then you juxtapose that with Australia, and they beat Turkey 2-0. Really, really good game. Really took the game to Turkey, and really press on the front foot and really full of energy and attacking threat. And I'm just going like, could we not have done something like that? At least you're not going to die wondering. And because they obviously got a 2-0 win there, and then Turkey obviously bombed out, they only needed a draw against Paraguay, and obviously Paraguay only needed a draw as well. So they sort of just probably shook hands before the game and went, a draw is enough. But and this is, to go a broader issue, and I'm ready to shut up now because I've been talking for too long, is that the head-to-head thing was a mistake from FIFA's point of view. I don't agree with that. It should have been back to goal difference. There was too many dead rubbers in that third round. Teams knew what they had to do to get through. And that scupper-day chances that Scotland ever had of, all 4 of these results need to happen. Like, that was never going to happen. So yeah, I kind of feel that they need to rethink that whole thing, because I'm all for the bigger World Cup. I think that's been great. I think some of the games I've watched have been fantastic. Like New Zealand versus Iran, on paper that looks rubbish, but that was one of the best games of football I've watched. It was just 2 teams absolutely having an absolute go at each other, trying to win that match, ended 2 each. So like I said, a lot of positives, but obviously a few negatives as well, which is that I'm Scottish and that's football, and it's never all roses. There's always some crap to go with it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll go to you, Paul. Like, what's your thoughts on Clark? I'm going off of our Celtic World group chat, and a lot of Scots in there, and it's pretty unanimous that they're thrilled that he's gone, which is crazy considering he brought them to a World Cup for the first time in 28 years, and had got them into the last couple of Euros as well. But it's like Anthony said, it's so drab the way they set up to play, and so it's hard to watch.
Absolutely, it is hard to watch. I sort of take on from what Anthony said is, and he alluded to it, but we've got no discernible style. We've got no discernible playing style, and the default position is to worry about what the opposition might do and act accordingly, which leaves players doubting what they're supposed to do. We've had some phenomenal results in his tenure, obviously Denmark being the highlight, but if you look at that match, it's three absolute worldies you wouldn't expect to see in a decade, 2 decades. Like they're 3 of Scotland. 3 of those 4 goals are 3 of Scotland's best ever goals in their international history.
Absolutely.
And they came in the same match. And it was a match where we needed to win to get us to the World Cup. Like, I don't want to diminish Steve Clarke too much, because he has taken us out of the wilderness, and he's if nothing else, he was functional. But my problem with Steve Clarke is a bit like my problem with Celtic, and there's a lot of parallels here. Is the Celtic board seem to believe that winning in Scotland is the be all and end all, and the Scottish national team SFA coach seem to think getting to a major tournament that'll do. That's the achievement, is actually getting to the tournament. Well, that should just be the start. Just the same as we're the richest club in Scotland. We should be winning the league as a bare minimum and then pushing on in Europe. I think we all sort of agree that should be the case. Our board, and we'll get onto that later, but I've got complete lack of ambition, as we've had on the campaign on the channel for a long time. And I think it's the same with, I think it's done for Steve Clarke as well. He lacks ambition. Whilst we're not a perfect team and we're not a fully well-built squad, there's patches in that squad. The centre backs are weak. We've no striker, as we've talked about. The sum of the parts, and some of those parts are great, and the sum of the parts should be better than that. And I think by not employing a proper style, generally being a defense, and he's always been a defensive coach. If you speak to West Brom fans, they'll bemoan the fact that he was an extremely negative coach. His biggest successes prior to Scotland were, Kilmarnock on a plastic pitch, making life really difficult for better teams to come and play against him. And he punched above his weight doing that. But I don't think, as a Scotland manager with the Tartan Army, who, like, obviously it's completely viral at this point. I don't have to explain the PR job they have done. But with that level of, I guess, passion and commitment, people flying from Australia to get to America, people cobbling together, going into debt, all of that to get there, and the atmosphere they create, regardless of results. The Tartan Army deserve a team that's at least going to try and play to its ability and have a crack. Like, as Anthony said, why would you want to go die wondering? This is exactly what happened at the Euros in 24. We went there, we were absolutely dog shit, and that's been generous to dog shit. Like, we stunk the place out. We mustered a crappy draw, and we got 2 defeats, and we limped out. And even in the last match where we said, we needed something from it, we didn't really have a go. This time, he's been too loyal to players that he's taken through the journey and helped us get there. somebody like Kieran Bowie should have been in that squad. I certainly think it's the end of the road for a lot of that squad. They're the most, a good chunk of them are the wrong side of 30. Whoever comes in to replace Clark needs to sort of almost rebuild that squad. Not quite from scratch, but it'll be a very big rebuild job. Again, similar to Celtic.
Yeah.
The coaching option needs to be right. The one thing I would say about the coaching situation, and again, I'm going to draw a parallel between Celtic and Scotland, is the Tartan Armies have done an amazing PR job. There must be coaches all over the world going, what a fan base. I'd love to coach a team with that fan base behind us. Like, imagine what that would do, like how exciting it would be to have a team with that inbuilt level of support. The interest in the job probably could never be higher than at this point. So that's a positive. There'll be CVs, resumes flying in from all over the world for that job. The danger is, and I think this is what will happen, is the SFA are a backward organisation, just like the Celtic board, and they will just stick to their own little tip for it now, and I've said it on the group chat that me and Anthony are in with other guys. It'll probably be John McGlynn, the Falkirk manager, because he is the best candidate that gets teams punching above their weight with a bit of attractive football that is in the immediate small pond that is Scottish football. And that's about as far, I think, as the SFA will look. So, yeah, you heard it here first. Put your money on John McGlynn. And I came up with John McGlynn after about 5 seconds of thinking about who the SFA might appoint. So you can imagine that's pretty much the effort that they'll put in as well, much like the Celtic board. Will we go out and scour the world for a coach? No, we'll just give it to Martin O'Neill for another year, and we'll either then give it to Maloney and Fozzie, or we'll see if Bellamy's finished with Wales at that point. The parallels are absolutely stark between the two organisations. Backward, non-ambitious, and hugely infuriating and frustrating. But yeah, I think end of the road for Steve Clark. I was probably saying it should have probably gone after the Euros. It was a can-kicking job with that, much like we've done with Martin O'Neill for another year. I didn't rehearse any of this, but it's just so obvious that the parallels between these two organizations are absolutely the same.
It's pretty stark.
So yeah, like I think whoever comes in, and look, I really do hope we go out and find somebody that's a bit of a more exciting appointment, but I don't see it. The one that I think every Scotland fan would, well, maybe not the Rangers supporting fans, but if we could get like Ange Postecoglou for Scotland, like that level of excitement would match the excitement from the fan base. It won't happen. Obviously, I think Ange probably wants another crack at a decent sized club football opportunity. The timing is probably not going to be out, but I think probably in another 3 or 4 years he's probably going to return to international football. And I think he'd be an amazing appointment for Scotland. But I think the problem at the minute is he'd want to play quite attacking football, and we're a bit bereft of attacking. We're a bit bereft of attacking options. But like I said, somebody like Kieran Bowie, a young player playing in CRA, obviously they've dropped him. It's looking like he's going to get signed by another team over there. I'm not saying he's a world beater, but he's a young striker with good physique and he knows where the goals are. That's somebody you want to like get in the team now, and maybe in 4 years' time he's at the level where he might get us a few goals in a World Cup. But and I'll shut up in a minute as well. I unfortunately called what would happen with Scotland a few weeks before the tournament.
This is true, by the way. This is a true story.
Yeah. So I said we will limp to, I think we'll beat Haiti. A lot of people say, no, it's a banana skin and classic Scotland. We'll make a mess of that and we'll beat one of the other two teams. I was like, nah, I think at this point we'll probably scrape past Haiti. And I actually thought we'd get thumped by both Morocco and Brazil. So I got that a little bit wrong. We only got a mild defeat to Morocco. But I did say I think we'd go out on goal difference probably as the 9th best third team. Now we're going to be worse than that. We're going to be worse than that because it looks like Congo, I think they're still winning with a few minutes to go. So they will I think they will then knock out Iran, which I feel a bit sorry for. Like, I was disappointed yesterday, but I feel a bit sorry for Iran because they did an amazing job to get a draw against Egypt and were pushing for a victory late on. But it looks like they're hanging in for now. They're hanging in for now. It's the Algeria-Austria game that will decide whether they go. But we're currently sitting 11th, 11th out of 12.
That's crazy.
Third place teams.
Well, when they before this last round of games started and the list came out of all the things that had happened for Scotland to qualify, I looked at it. I was like, I could see a lot of those things happen, and then it's just one by one. Nope.
Yeah, they kept falling over. Yeah, like I agree with you, Sean. I think I think it was we needed 4 from 9 results. I think, and you go, and so I think the odds were like 46 to 50% chance of us qualifying at the outset, and one by one the dominoes fell, and it was never in our favor. So look, you create your own luck. We weren't attacking enough. We didn't score enough goals. We didn't get the results. But the law of averages say that at least some of those results should have probably gone our way, and they didn't. And looking at the tournament beforehand, I honestly thought there'd be quite a few teams would make it through with 3 points, and we just hoped that we would be one of those if we couldn't get that second match with a point in our favor. And as it's going to turn out, it looks like there'll be maximum 2 teams qualify on 3 points. It might only be 1. If Algeria can get at least a point against Austria, they'll move to 4 points. Iran will drop out, and then only Senegal will have got through on 3 goals. And they obviously scored a ton of goals against was it Iraq in that last match? So they've scored 8 goals. Conceded 6, mind you, but they've scored 8 goals. And that's the other thing that we were going to be done for, is even if we'd got in the mix and we had somebody on the same goal difference as us, the next decider was goal scored, and we got 1 in 3 matches. Right. So we like, even if it had got to the white, that's why we needed like teams to win by 2 or 3 goals, not 1 or 2 goals, because the next deciding factor was terrible too. So yeah, it's one of those. I was supposed to be at this World Cup, but Trump pretty much closed the door on me and my mates deciding to go. Not literally, but we might have had problems without deleting most of our social media history. So we just said, fuck it. Well, we're not going to this one. And a good few of us are planning to go to Portugal, Spain, and Morocco in 4 years' time. Now, do I think Scotland will be there? I think it's a coin flip. Probably not. Do I think Australia will be there? Certainly hope so. I think we've been at every World Cup since 2006.
Yeah. You would think they would. I would.
I say we. I've got the passport. I'm also an Australian fan. We had a great day. We had a great day. Anthony was with it. We had a great day. Anthony and a few more of our mates for the first round of games. Scotland played. Kicked off at 7 a.m. Anthony, was it? 9 a.m. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. We were in the pub at 7 a.m. because that's we were in the pub at 7 a.m. because that's when the doors opened. But that's right. The match kicked off at 9 a.m. local time here, and then the Socceroos kicked off at midday. So on that basis, we were in the pub from like 7:30 till about 2:33 p.m. with the afters. It was a great day. Like, both teams won. A lot of beers were had. I'll be honest, I wouldn't have been able to do a tactical review of the Australia game, put it that way, the day after. I'd probably not even the Scotland game, to be honest.
Even before the game even started, Paul, like you were doing all the chants and everything. Like they glazed. I had somewhere to be, so I was a bit more sensible. But
no Scotland no party, mate. Oh no, Scotland no party.
We're celebrating a drab 1-0 win. But anyway,
first time in 28 years we got the World Cup.
I know. Good atmosphere, good crack.
So yeah, no, it was really good. We were in a brewery. We were in a Scottish brewery in Perth, which went full on with it. I think it was like 600-700 people, 800 people in there. Oh, wow. It was pretty epic. We had a piper before the game at halftime, and black pudding and bacon rolls and all the ones. Only haggis is missing. Anyway, I've definitely rambled on too long. I've probably parked the Scotland stuff for now. Yeah. But I think it has been a great World Cup. Like, I think there was a lot of. Last thing I'll say is I think there's a lot of concern given the backdrop of what's going on in your country and ICE and the government and all of that sort of stuff, and the trouble certain teams and officials have even had getting into the bloody country. But thankfully, when the football started, a lot of that has sort of disappeared, at least into the background. That's obviously not gone away, but it's been incredibly positive certainly from the outside looking in. I don't know what you guys feel. That's maybe a good place to start in terms of your experience of the country and the region hosting the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll go to you next, Chris. I'll real quickly.
Yeah.
I have not watched any. I haven't watched a second of it live. I know what's happening. I'm watching, but for the same reasons you said, Paul. Like I hate FIFA. I don't think I watched any of the last World Cup. I think FIFA is the most corrupt organization in the world, pretty much. So yeah, I kind of decided early I wasn't going to watch, and I've stuck with it. It's been hard at times. I know, there's especially because you do see all the Scottish fans, and you see a lot of that stuff, like the Dutch fans in Kansas City. I mean, they're nuts, and it's. I would like to get involved with it, but and part of it too is like the shitty way that Iran's been treated, like that they can't stay in the country. I think it's the Somalian ref who wasn't allowed to come in. I think it's appalling. And I've said this on the show a bunch of times. Like, if the host country won't accommodate the teams and officials and everything, you should not be allowed to host the tournament. For that reason, I haven't watched it. Just in terms of, I still know what's going on. So, but I don't know, Chris, what's been your following of it?
Yeah, and I mean, I know we've talked about this a lot. Is neither one of us are huge international football fans anyway. Because like an international break rolls around, and I'm like, now I got to wait for this to get over with to get back to watching Celtic again, right? So, I've already got like a something in my crawl about the World Cup, international football, but for the cat, I went into it thinking that I wasn't going to watch a whole lot, and I haven't watched every match. I've only watched 2 of the Scotland matches, and I watched half of another couple of random Norway, France, whatever. I've watched every Mexico match. That's kind of the team that I've been most eager to watch this World Cup for no other reason other than fuck ice. So it's kind of like come on Mexico, let's do it. But beyond that, I've not been that excited, but man, every time I turn the TV over and there's a match on, Anthony, you said it earlier. It's the most entertaining two teams going for it back and forth. Was it Egypt and somebody, and I don't remember who. They're all kind of running together anyway. But Egypt was playing, I know for sure, and I mean they were at breakneck Dizemate pace the entire second half, and I'm like, man. This is at least exciting. They're making it exciting, and of course, all of the stuff with the fans and everything that's all been great. And for a lot of the country, they're not as exposed to a lot of football culture as much, right? Like they get MLS, and MLS is terrible for football culture, and then they see the Tartan Army. And, thousands of people, drinking in the streets and the cones on the statues. And everybody's like, man, there's a lot more to it. So I do think that there's been some really positive things in the U.S. that have kind of been exposed. The Columbia fans, for example. I saw a video of them partying with, I forget who they were playing too, but they were kind of mingling together with the other fans, and it was like, hey, we're all in this and we're celebrating being at the World Cup together, and I think that's something that we've needed definitely in this country for a while. But from the standpoint of do I think that there is a benefit to having the World Cup here? Yeah, I think it's been good. I really think it's done a lot of good for a lot of people, but I think it's isolated in those cities, like in Boston, right? That's, 900 miles away from here, where there's still stuff going on in Memphis or, wherever else. So, I mean, like, everything is kind of a grain of salt, that we're having to take the World Cup. But, yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's been a great positive so far.
That's certainly the external view I've sort of had is, and there's a lot of commentary happened around this, is it's kind of shows when fans go, most fans, let's hope that continues. I think we all know who might bring the tone down if they get beaten before they're ready, which is always. But generally, all those fan bases have really sort of been there. They've been there in great numbers. And I think the great thing about the States is it's a melting pot of cultures. You've got people from all over the globe who have made their home in the States, and it's kind of shown the best of humanity. There's a lot of come out of the States and over the last few years, going back to Trump's first term and everything in between, is there's a lot of negatives about that, your country, but this World Cup is the sort of best of humanity, I think. And the thing that I certainly, and this is probably a bit utopian and almost naive, but it shows people that there isn't that much difference between us. We're all human. It doesn't matter what religion we focus on, what color our skin is, what our demographics are, what our background is. Ultimately, we all, certainly in terms of the World Cup, we're all there. We love football. You're there to enjoy yourself and hope your team wins and celebrate. And I think if more people can sort of remember that in the aftermath, everywhere will be a better, not just America, but the whole world will be a better place. Because the problem is we get into this for a month and then, it's sort of a bit like the armistice at Christmas or whatever in a world war where they come out and they come out of the trenches and they have a little, a get together, and then they go right back on and down we go again. We'll blow each other up again. So yeah, no, it's it has been fantastic. There's definitely been a bit of envy for me, given that I was planning to be on that trip and it hasn't happened. And I'm still, I've still never been to a World Cup. At the time a World Cup's been on in a country it's been in, it seems a long way until that Australia will get the option. Obviously, we were lucky enough to host the Women's World Cup 3 years ago, so we got to see a little bit of the benefit of that, even in Perth, which is a long way from the rest of the country. Most of the games were over east, but we did have a few games locally. And certainly when the Matildas got to the semi-final, the country effectively stopped. Like, you had people who probably never watched a Matildas match, certainly all the way through, in pubs. The pubs were heaving. I remember I got a few mates and we went to a pub and watched the game. Unheard of for a women's match for that to happen. It was a real sort of landmark game changer. And I think hosting a World Cup, whether it's a Women's World Cup or the Men's World Cup, it's a massive shot in the arm for the game as a whole. And yeah, obviously the last time it happened in the States in '94, MLS was born out of it. And I hope it really gives the country a kick on in terms of opening up the game to other people who had sort of maybe dismissed it as a women's game or a kids game, which I think it tends to be thought of in the US. Yeah.
Do you think, would Australia, and if they added New Zealand into it, would they have the infrastructure, stadiums to be able to do the Men's World Cup?
We've got the infrastructure to host it with or without New Zealand. The issue we've got is our major sporting code is AFL or Australian Rules Football, and they'd have to relinquish control of some of their stadiums for 3 months, and there's just no way they'll ever do that. So you'd either have to build more purpose-built stadiums, which kind of then makes it an unfeasible prospect. When you've got 100,000 seaters. We've got 60,000 seater in Perth where we are, plus another 25,000 seater square rectangular stadium. Sydney's got Olympic Park, which is 90 to 100,000, MCG's 100,000. So we've got the capacity stadiums to do it, but other codes would have to relinquish rights. And the problem we've got is if we have the World Cup now in Australia, that's the middle of AFL season. So there's no way that's going to happen. And then if we have it in summer, like a Qatar World Cup, it'll be too hot. But then on top of that, we've got cricket, and cricket's just as powerful as the AFL lobby. So that's the issue. And the AFL are so petty that they scheduled an AFL match, effectively two low teams that nobody cares about. They scheduled a game of football at the same time as Australia was playing Turkey, just to like not give them any like free air and just to compete. And it's just, even the AFL players were coming out going, why have they done this? Like, I want to be watching the Socceroos. I don't want to be playing. Who's going to watch us? Like, they're all going to be watching the Socceroos. Like, this is the actual AFL players saying, this is the captains of the teams coming in a press conference saying this. So that's how tightly controlled it is. They give absolutely zero quarter to football or soccer in this country. So, the fact that the Socceroos have gotten out of the group finishing second is an amazing achievement. I've heard people going, oh yeah, you only managed to draw against Paraguay. It was really boring. It's like, the whole point is to get out of the group. That is the aim. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's a win, a loss, or draw, whatever it takes. And they knew they needed to draw, and they're finishing second. I mean, that's an incredible achievement. I mean, the US, I have to say, I take my hat off. Like, Pochettino's got them playing some really good football. Like, they absolutely blitzed Paraguay in that first match. And then they were good against Australia as well. So, I mean, fair play. The Poch has got the US. I think the US, again, could be a bit of a dark horse in this tournament.
Kind draw
support as well.
Kind draw. I wonder how that happens.
Exactly.
The bracket came out pretty favourable for the States. But I agree with you that he's got them playing some fantastic stuff and actually, again, looking like better than the sum of their parts, right? So, and that's what a good coach and a good team does. You should punch above the weight of the individual players, and it's sort of about harking on about the same point, is that Scotland don't really do that, and I think a lot of countries fail to do that. But the countries that are best, and you've seen it with likes of Cabo Verde, and now as I like to call them, Dr. Congo. So that's a bit me. The Democratic Republic of Congo, obviously, like those teams have really sort of punched above their weight, because they've gone, well, they've taken the same view that Scotland should take. We've still got a view that because we were at 5 or 6 World Cups in a row, this 28 year, we're a World Cup team, right? And I still think that. Like, born in 78, we'd just back from Argentina then. We'd been at 74. We were at 82, 86, 90. We missed 94 in the States, and we were back there, France 98. And so there was a long history of Scotland being in World Cups when there was a lot fewer teams making it there. But there was also fewer countries. Obviously, the breakup of various states means we've now got a lot more countries, and countries have got better. But I think we still think of ourselves as a bit of a World Cup country, whereas the likes of Cabo Verde and the Democratic Republic of Congo, etc., they don't think they think, well, we might never get a crack at this ever again. So, let's have a go. Let's, if we go down in a blaze of glory, well, at least we had a crack. And I think that attitude's gone a long way. Like, for them to get a draw against Spain, who were the pre-tournament favourites. Now, I don't think they've really lived up to that yet, but it's a long tournament and there's time enough for them to grow into that position. I just think it's fantastic that these countries are having a real go. I think the States have looked great. But they're a proper team, and they're well drilled, and they know their roles. But the one thing they've got over a lot of teams that I've seen is genuine pace, and the ability to move and work space. There's a few teams done that, but not at the level that you would sort of put the States at, which is maybe that second tier of countries that your target would be quarterfinals would be a good run for a team like that.
Yeah.
I'd also say that having a really high quality striker makes such a difference. Like, if your team, your nation has a Haaland or a Pulisic or whoever, it just makes life so much easier. Like, you've just got a guy who, if you can get it to him in an attacking position, there is every likelihood that ball is ending up in the back of the net. Messi did it, Mbappe's done it. Like, they're just all racking up the goals. And it's just like, Scotland just doesn't have it. And Australia's maybe starting to discover it now with Irkuna and some young emerging talent. But for Scotland, we were absolutely no one. Like, Lyndon Dykes, Shea Adams, and Lauren Shankland. And I mean, like, you know, you're relying on your attacking midfielders to score goals, and then you've got them, like I said at the start, like running around like donkeys trying to like man mark opposition players. So yeah, the whole system. But to sort of segue the conversation towards Celtic, you know, World Cups are good for watching Celtic players playing in the World Cups. Obviously, Alistair Johnston's had some really good performances for Canada, so it seems that he's over his injury issues. So you know, his value is skyrocketing, and I'm really hoping that we can actually hold on to him for another season at least. But he's playing really well. I mentioned Austin Trusty scored a goal for the US. He got a start in that third game. He's been warming the bench up until then. Nygren, I think has he scored?
He hasn't scored. I think
he hasn't scored.
No,
he was on the bench for the last game. And then obviously Dyson Maeda, he started the first game, didn't start the second, but then he scored in the third match. Really, really good goal. That was a really nice bit of football.
Dyson goal. That was like a classic Dyson goal.
Yeah.
And he said, I was worried about my first touch. And it's like, yes, Dyson, you always worry about your first touch. Like every time you play, mate, it's just like, it's either world-class control or it's like, you know, ricochets about 20 yards in front of him. But no, fantastic goal. And obviously, you know, Kieran Tierney, I thought he put on, I thought his performance in the second half against Brazil was excellent. And he kind of put Robertson to shame in that first half, and he was deployed as a tagger, like a man marker in that game against Morocco. I don't know what he was asked to do in that game, but that was not fair on him. And yeah, again, bad tactics. But like I said, probably segue the conversation towards Celtic. But yeah, and yeah, that sort of gives you other teams, other nations to sort of watch, or reason to watch, obviously. And then you see the likes of Eli Just for New Zealand banging in the goals. Unfortunately, they were at the tournament, but he, you know, his price is probably, you know, as Paul we were discussing it, saying he's out of our price range now, just on the back of that tournament sort of thing. But yeah, but again, a player we could have tapped up. You know, we could have done. Maybe we still will. I don't know, but unlikely given the glacial pace at which we move at. You know, don't want to be too negative, but let's all get our cards on the table here.
We typically at this point does get negative, so
it took a day and age to
announce. Spade a spade, let's be honest.
It took a day and age to announce Martin O'Neill, and then it's like, all right, well, surely it's a no-brainer that Fozzie and Maloney are going to be his assistants. Oh no, we dragged that one out for the better part of 2 weeks, and then obviously the last day or two, it's been announced that yes, they will be the managers along with Stephen McManus. Gavin Strachan's exited the building with or without his laptop. So you're sort of saying to yourself, we can't even get like what seems like a no-brainer decision right, and that's our backroom staff. Like that's. And I have a full respect for Sean Maloney. He's looking at this going, well, I could be out of a job in a year. If I'm going to hang around for a year and do this, I should be paid appropriately. And you know, they've earned it. We won a double with, you know, you'd argue one of the worst ones we've had. Blah blah blah. You know, all the whatever you want to label it, that the team that we had last season. But you know, just pay the money. Like it's not Sean Maloney and Fozzie's fault that we hired Wilfred Nancy and we had to sack him and sack all his team and pay millions of dollars in compensation, or millions of pounds compensation. That's not their fault. Find that money from somewhere else. But it's not on the incumbent management team that they have to take a wage cut because they stuffed up appointing the last permanent manager. So that just really gets me. It's like, take all that good stuff of winning a double and just flush it down the pan in the space of like, you know, a few weeks when, again, easy decision. And then, you know, all the talk around Marcelo Sarachi, Boca Juniors want him off their books. It only costs a couple of $1 million to get him in. He's on low wages. No brainer.
It is.
Excellent backup for Kieran Tierney. I argue equally as Kieran Tierney, I think he put in some really magnificent performances. And we're talking about loaning him. It's like, just pay the money. You're talking a couple of $1 million. It's chump change for us. And we're haggling over that. So I'm just going like, oh, this is just going to be absolute torture. Like you thought watching Scotland in a World Cup match was torture. This transfer window, like pre-season, as Drowby talked, we've learned no lessons, and I guess the naivety is that having Paul and I tend to try and be glass half full. I don't know why, but we try to be.
It's my natural demeanor.
But, he drags me along sometimes, and then I drag my dad along because he's very much in Celtic dad territory. So he's very much like, everything's doom and gloom and it's all terrible. And no, Dad, we can do this. We can win this game. We can win the league. He's like, I don't see how we can. It's like, just keep the faith, whatever. But when you just have the same Muppets in charge, and they got away with one last season, you just think they're not going to learn the lesson. They're just going to keep making the same. I wouldn't even say it's mistakes. From our point of view, it's a mistake. For them, it's deliberate. It's not. It's intentional. It's malfeasance. It's like, it's just how they operate. They're just worried about dollars, like pounds on a balance sheet. And it's just like, guys, we've got one more chance to crack the Champions League before it becomes even more difficult. We've got to try and, maximize this opportunity. And it sounds like we're on a cross-cutting exercise right from the start, starting with the backroom team, and now obviously it will go into the players that we're trying to sign, or well, allegedly try to sign. We're not exactly being linked with too many players, which is the other really disturbing thing. But then, are you that surprised because we don't have a head of football? Sean Maloney's just been appointed 2 days ago, so if he's doing that sort of scouting role, I wouldn't imagine he's been up to too much if he's been trying to negotiate his contract. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll leave. Yeah, right. I'll pass that negativity over to you guys. And
I feel like our show typically becomes an hour and 15 minutes of us being super negative about what happens, and then it's. I think we're going to win this week, and I think we're going to win the league still. So it becomes positive in the end. I mean, Chris, would you agree?
Yeah, I've always got to be, a little bit positive, because otherwise, like, I've got to get something to get me motivated to, at least be like, oh, okay, yeah, I think we could do it now, right? So, like, that's what's going to get me up in the morning to, put the hoops on, right? But no, I wholeheartedly, like, our show on Thursday, we were talking about, well, since Martin O'Neill is appointed manager and we don't have a backroom staff, like, who's going to open the door to lead training? Is it going to be James Forbes? Like, we got keys to Lennox Town. Like, he's going to have a janitor, come and open doors. Like, I don't understand why it took that long for them to get the backroom staff in. It just. The frustrating thing for me was that you didn't hear anything else about what was going on behind the scenes, right? It was just, radio silence. So everybody's sitting there guessing, and, if you spend 5 minutes on the internet, you'll get 100 different answers of what's actually happening, not what's truly happening, but, you'll get somebody's, cousin's brother knows why, Fozzie hasn't been signed. And you're like, There's no way that we're this inept at getting a backroom staff signed a day before training starts, right? And I mean, we've talked about it on our show a good bit. Is as soon as the World Cup's over with, like, we're right in the middle of preseason, let alone Champions League qualifiers. Like, we cannot make any mistakes here. So, like, I want to see movement, whether it's good or bad. I just want to see movement, because not being told what's happening until the day of training for backroom staff, that's unacceptable, in my opinion. That's no way to run an organization that is supposed to be a professional football club.
We're not a serious organization, though. That's the problem.
Well,
we're not a serious organization. I've heard others say, and I've occasionally lent into the bowling club analogy. I don't know if you've got lawn bowls in America, but people say, oh, this is run like a bowling club. It's an absolute insult to bowling clubs. They're organized. They work on a small budget. They make things happen. They bring the community together. It's generally a positive part of the community. They're an absolute shock, an absolute shocker of an organization. You just reiterate everything else. Like, it's a shambles. They're clearly on a cost-cutting exercise. And this is classic Celtic board, is they've looked ahead and gone, oh yeah, so this is the way the coefficient it pans out over the coming years, and we've done a bit of this on the main show, on sort of Gav's headlining show, is that's clearly coming. So this year, where we've got one qualifier, same as last year, really got to try and maximize it. We should have maximized it last year, knocked out by the team that finished absolutely dead last in the league of 36. Seeded again, great opportunity, be a similar level of team. We're arguably going to be even less prepared than we were then. I am the glass half full kind of guy, but the issue we've got here is the board have gone, well, that source of funds isn't going to be available beyond this coming year. And any other sensible, forward-thinking, progressive organization would go, well, you speculate to accumulate, right? So you get the work done early, you build a really good squad, you make sure you get qualified, and then you give them the best crack at a run in that tournament, because then you can maximize the income for this one last year, and in the process boost the coefficient so that at some point further down the line, that starts to come back around, and at least then you've got a good squad built, which just needs topping up around the fringes when the new manager comes in next year. And then, you might have to do 2 or 3 rounds of qualifying then, but at least that team has all been together for 12 months and might have a better crack of getting through those qualifying rounds, or at least getting back to maybe Europa. But that's not how our board operates. Our board operates on a worst case scenario basis. So they've gone, well, we might not qualify for this Champions League, which then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, same as it did last year. You don't prepare enough, you don't get the team, the squad built quick enough, you miss out. Now, whether they do or don't make the Champions League, sort of almost neither here nor there, because they're really gearing themselves up because they know that it's not going to get better than this. So the cost-cutting exercises, yes, they've wasted a ton of money on Nancy, Tisdale, Nancy's backroom staff. God knows how much million they've written off there. They've wasted a lot of money because they can't do transfers properly, because they haven't put a director of football in play for years. And we keep giving teams 5 million quid for the likes of Balikwisha and Tenekti, etc. And then 1 and 2, 3 million here and there, that all adds up to multi-millions on players that aren't good enough, because it happened to work once or twice when we bought Matt O'Reilly for 1.5 and sold him for 30, right? Instead of thinking that's a unicorn scenario, they're going, oh, we could just replicate that with no fucking football infrastructure, no director of football, no coaching team, no scouting team, nothing. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous. And the old adage of, if you do the same thing and expect a different outcome, that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier.
I think that's where we're going to end up. Like, there's a mixture of knowing that the Champions League money is not going to come in future years, maybe this year if we're lucky, but not in future years, and that we've wasted a ton of money over the last 2 or 3 years. So they've just decided to draw the line in the sand, and they've put a club legend as basically a human shield, because which is what they did last year, right? Like the campaigns against them had to ease off because we had to support Martin O'Neill and the team. We'd want to support the team and Martin O'Neill, but like, you almost felt bad, having like, obviously kicked off about the ball, the tennis balls on the pitch. He was furious about it, like, and you just you want to please him, right? Like, he's the club legend. We look, things are better if we are unified, but it's making it very difficult to be unified. Like, I know Celtic fans who are lifelong fans, my age or older, who are basically done with the club until there's change at the top. My brother, who used to work for the club, won't set foot inside the ground. He's based along the road from Glasgow, from the stadium. He on point of principle, he will not return to Celtic Park until there's change at that level. It's just like, and so these are ones and twos here and there. But if you're making lifelong Celtic fans either just become fully apathetic or resolutely that they're not going to spend their money inside the stadium, or so they're harming themselves from that match day experience, when none of us know how long we've got, right? And certainly as fans who live in far-flung corners of the world, you give your left arm to get to games regularly, but this is how the club makes people feel, that you can be joyful if the team's performing and getting results, but there's that absolute utter loathing of the people that are supposed to be the custodians of the club, because their actions are so at massive odds with where the fan base feels they should be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I always said all season. There was almost like a disdain from the board towards the Celtic fan base, which is obviously not a good way to run things. But you're right. I mean, it's insane. I mean, I said all towards the end of last season, like they just have to have learned from the way this season went, and everything that's happened so far in this offseason shows nope, not even a little bit. Like it seems like they've like if you decided to stick with Martin O'Neill, whether that you think that's a good move or not, like and whatever, and like Paul has said, he's a legend, and you almost have to get behind him, and that's kind of what I've done. But like it's not the move of a forward-thinking club that's trying to, modernize the way they do things and get better. It's another Band-Aid on top of everything that's happened so far. But if you're going to do that, like you have to have this backroom staff. That should have been part of the deal originally. Like when they announced Martin O'Neill, it should have been the backroom staff is right there beside him. Like it's mind-boggling to think that it might not have happened. Like that they would not have given the money to these guys
well, we all know Martin's not on the training field every day.
No, exactly, right.
Like Martin's a figurehead. Like he lives down in London and flies up on a Wednesday or whatever, and then all right, what's happening? Which is fair enough. The guy's 74. I do not have a problem with that. And by all accounts, that's how he ran things 20 years ago when the last time he was there as well. So there's no issue with that. That's absolutely fine. But you're absolutely right, Shawnee. It's like it's the sum of the parts. Like you need the it's like having a chassis without having an engine in it. Like you need the whole car. So yeah, no, it's to take a full circle. It's right. And Stephen Kramer comments talking about Eli Just. I think we did mention that earlier in the show. He's probably out of our price range now.
Yeah, I saw that too. We've been talking about that for weeks. But it's tough. I think it's a tough spot, like, because he probably would not have signed before the World Cup, just knowing what can happen. Like, he can, boost his value during the World Cup exponentially on his end. So, like, why sign before it? But at the same time, like, I think he would be the perfect fit in the midfield for us. So, I mean, hopefully they can make it happen. He's obviously added, like, a lot of money, I think, onto the price.
But you just think of the amount of players we need to bring in. Like, we need another goalkeeper. We're going to need another centre half because Stephen Welsh is away. All right, Narosti's come back, but he's, is he the answer? Probably not. No. You need another left back because you've only got one left back. Right back, we're probably okay, provided AJ doesn't go. Centre midfield, well, Engels is definitely going. So you don't need a replacement there. Oxlade-Chamberlain doesn't seem like he's coming back. Left wing, we've got no one. Well, we've got Tenekti because Jota's going to be out for ages still, and you'd assume Maid is away. Right wing, you've got Yang and James Forrest, so you realistically need another right winger. And then centre forward, we've got Callum Osmond. Mm-hmm. Am I missing anybody? Oh, sorry, Johnny Kenny coming back from loan, or
and Shin Yamada coming back from loan as well.
All right, okay, yeah. That prolific striker.
You're spot on. I think the thing is, you've also, Rayo's almost certainly gone.
Yes, sorry,
that's another one.
Paulo Bernardo changed his agent. Whether whatever you think, he's lost his way. He lost his way anyway. Like, he looked like a prospect at one point, and for whatever reason, he completely fell out of favor. Iheanacho and Oxlade-Chamberlain's wages will have been high, and they'll have been deemed worth it for the gamble. But you're not going to give them extensive contracts at their age with the level of contribution they're able to put in on an ongoing basis. That money can definitely be spent better elsewhere, probably on directors' bonuses. So yeah, we've got an issue. Yeah, we've got a real issue. We've got a real issue. I think Anthony's saying Engels is definitely away. I think he probably is. I think I've got a tiny little bit of naive hope that he seemed to really flourish under O'Neill. So could we get him? Could we get him to stay for one more season? Because the thing is,
I don't think so.
Well, I don't think so either, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great.
Yeah, like I get it. He's Roma touted Roma for 26 million. For me, you go, given how big the rebuild is already and how integral he is to that team, is you set the price for him at least 35 mil and see what happens, right? Yeah. Unless there's been a pre-agreement with him and his agent at an earlier point, which it probably has been, let's be honest, that if we get an offer of X, you can go. Because in theory, I've got no real issue with paying 11 for Engels and selling him for 26 if the club isn't a complete basket case. We've always talked about we should have the replacement in the door before they've even gone, ideally 6-12 months ahead of time. So there's a natural sort of rolling through of the squad. But if you can't do that, you've definitely got to know that your player that's going is being replaced in this, like, effectively in the same announcement. You buying a player and selling a player and they're both announced in the same day. That's the kind of thing we should be doing. I've got no confidence that that's the case. So say you sell Engels for 26 million, say you sell Dyson for 10, say you sell Rio for 3 or 4, say you sell Nygren for 15, 20, which is being touted, and he's a first choice starter for Sweden, or he has been in 2 out of the 3 matches, and he's taken all our set pieces, etc. Like, however good you think he is and all of that. You sell all those players, brilliant. What's that bringing in? 70, 80 million, something stupid like that. Add in a few rats and mice that other players that go. If we did that and we spent that 50, 60, 70 million all on players to replace them and brought in 10, 11, 12 players, which is probably what we need if all of those players go. We probably need the guts of a dozen players if all of those players go, plus what's already gone. I've got no real issue with that. If the recruitment's done properly and we're picking up players that are in that 3 to 8 million bracket, some of them will be at the lower end of that, some of them will be at the higher end of that. You might have to pay 9, 10, 11 to get a half-decent striker, etc. No real issue with any of that, because that's the model, right? The model is you buy a player, you get him in the team, he performs for 2-3 years max, and he's on a 4 or 5 year deal, and then you sell him in the last year or 2 of his contract, and you make a profit, and so on and so forth. I've got no confidence that we're anywhere near being able to do that at the minute. So if you let Dyson, Nygren, Engels, Rio on the fringes, but if they're 3 starters from a team that limped over the line at the end of the season, you get rid of them on top of everything else, we are in real trouble.
Yep.
Even if you get the bodies in, I've got no confidence that they'll be at a high enough level. And if you don't know anything about them, and they might be good, which, look, we didn't know anything about Elijah Just. He turned into a fantastic player. I knew nothing about Elliot Watt. He's a fantastic player, etc., etc. Like, so we might pick up some players that none of us have really heard of and turn out to be great players. But they're absolutely going to need some bedding in time, and we'll be straight into a qualifier within them being signed for 1, 2, 3 weeks, probably at best. I've got real concerns.
Yeah, I love this comment from Steven. Remember when we had Johnston in whilst Juranovic was still there? Like, that's not even a thought right now to have guys waiting in the wings, or even you almost feel like they don't even look at players. They're not even looking outwards to players before a player leaves. That player leaves, like, all right, we gotta get out and find somebody. I feel like that's the model of the club right now, and it's fucking insane. Like,
we're notorious for just taking the offers of agents and going, "Oh, my player's available.
Yeah.
Do you want him? Oh, we'll make him fit."
Yeah.
He's willing to take a wage that we're happy to pay, and he wants to come. Okay, all right. There you go, Martin. There you go, Brendan. You make him play. I mean, it's happened so many times. Like, they turn the nose up and go, "I didn't sign him." You go back to Marion Shved the first time around when Rodgers was there. That was a club signing. You go back even further back, Paddy McCourt, apparently that was a Desmond intervention there. You know, the Johnny Kenny, I mean, was there much clamour for him? I don't know. It's just, yeah, like I said, and all right, shift it over to Hundham for a minute there. Like, they're just getting their business done. Like, they're just, all right, they're signing some absolute jobbers, but they're still getting bodies in the door. And it seems to be a minimal of fuss. And, like, you know, they're getting it done. So, like, you know, it can be done. But we just seem to be in this paralysis where it's like, oh, let's just wait for the last couple of weeks of the window and see what falls out the tree. And that's our signing policy. And it's worked all these other times. 14 out of 15 seasons we won the league, so it must be the right way to go. It's like, no, guys, like, you've done it in spite of yourselves, not because of good planning or good management or good decision making. But you're right that the depth in this squad has been gutted season after season after season. Like, you know, the perfect example with Juranovic and AJ, like, your Nick's replacement's already in the door. You know, the whole point is that Paolo Bernardo should have been like a potential replacement for Calmac or another centre midfielder ready to go. We've been developing him. Obviously, that's gone completely kibosh because he wasn't getting game time or whatever. But the issue you've now got is Hatate could go and Engels could go, and there's no one within the squad to promote to basically take that place. And that's
Luke McCowan.
Sorry, Luke. I forgot about.
I thought you were half full.
It looked like you had a really nice wedding. It was a really nice wedding. It looks like they had a great time. So, Greg Taylor was in attendance. I wonder if we'll get Greg Taylor back. He's done absolutely nothing in Greece. Maybe he'll come back. That's the other Celtic mantra is like, oh well, we'll just get our old players back again for round two. I was just trying to say, totally. Just something popped into my head, but I don't know if you saw the images of John Beaton in Melbourne, Australia, celebrating with the Tartan Army, and then all the Celtic supporters had their hands up, and he's just a big smile on his face. So that's upset the Huns to absolutely no end, and he's one of theirs, and they're still upset. It's priceless. And it's not even their team; it was Hearts. But you know, like, it's hard to say now because, like, I feel like there's been a Huns Hearts amalgamation. Like, they're basically taking all their players. Shankland, Wee Devlin signed for them now. Obviously, you got the orange one in charge, whose, like, skin color is the same color as the mahogany on the door. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, like I said, until we start seeing some business happening, and like I said, I don't see it happening anytime soon because, like you say, Stephen McGowan's not dropped anything. So, like, if he's not dropping anything in his paper column, then I wouldn't be getting too excited with people speculating online. It's all just probably, just people talking. But it's frustrating. And as a Celtic fan, you want to see the team and the club do the best it can, but we're so ranked amateurish in so many departments, and it just seems to be allowed to flourish. And as I've said this on many podcasts before, our CIO, our Chief Ineffective Officer, is literally picking up £1 million a year to do not even the bare minimum. He's just basically Dermot's toady, and just basically just acts as a shield for him.
What does he do? He never speaks. He spoke a little bit after Nancy came in, but that's the last time you heard from him, really, which is crazy.
But he gets away with it. He gets away with it. It doesn't have to. And that's the sickening thing, is that we've heard more from an interim chairman who is still the interim chairman. It's like, we haven't even found another chairman yet. It's just so much to do, so much to have done. And what we've actually said, we've dragged our heels appointing a manager and a backroom team. And I think I've exhausted myself on what I can say on it, to be honest. Let's talk about something else.
I'll throw one question to Chris, and it's just in talking about angles. Like, can the angles move be a model for what they do in the future? Signing a player for £11 million as opposed to the 4 and 5 million, and then, like you said, those handful of 1.5. And you see that you were able to sell him on for 25, 30 million, whatever it ends up being. Do they expand upon that and say, all right, this worked with Engels. Can we get 2 or 3 of these guys in this time if we're selling Dyson and Engels, and we have a shit ton of money to do it.
I mean, we did it with Matt O'Reilly, right?
Right, but that was
but
more pedigree guy you're getting. Like I'm thinking.
But I guess my point is that if you sell Ingles for, let's say, $30 million, right? That's great, but you've got to replace it, right? And I think that was Paul's point earlier, is that there's no method for getting that next replacement in there at the same time. So even if you get $30 million for Ingles, I don't think that you're going to be able to replace him, because you're already behind in getting him replaced. Because like look at we've talked about it. Ange, the last of the Ange signings, right? Kyogo never got replaced. Adamita never got replaced. Matt O'Reilly never got replaced. I mean, so like this has happened consistently over the past 5-6 years. As far as you sell a player that we did pay good money for, 11 million pounds is, I mean, that's kind of top of our end that we're going to buy players on, and then you're going to turn around and sell him for however much. And if you don't have that method of bringing players in to replace them, then I don't have much faith in it. But to your point though, I do think that Ingles will allow you to get those players. You just have to finish, the rest of the sentence and get the player to bring it back in, so that like, let's say we get, 3 $5 million players for 15, right? And, you're taking half of Ingles' money and spending it, across 3 players in the midfield. I've got no problem with that, as long as you replace them and have them coming in. But again, that's the frustration, is that we don't know what's happening. We don't hear those players, appearing in, getting their five minutes of publicity or whatever when we sign them, because it's 3 days from Champions League qualifier match.
I think the other problem with this is as well is, and like, I think finally the penny dropped for a big chunk of the fan base that took a long time to warm to Engels in the run-in, because when he came back in the team, it was abundantly obvious what we'd be missing. I think a lot of people, the 11 million, the 11 million spent will, I think, and I thought at the time it would look like a bargain. It's going to look like a bargain. If he goes for 26, then anything not, if he double it or more, it turns out it's a bargain, right? Right. He's contributed to winning 2 titles, a couple of cups, some time in Europe, and you double your return on that. That should be the model. I think the problem we've got is we've got a few problems, but in the fan base, there's a problem. There's a major problem in the fan base that people think 11 million pounds is a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money for us because it's rare that we spend it. In the modern game, 11 million is nothing. One of the reasons why people got frustrated with Engels is because he wasn't a superstar straight out the gate, and we paid 11 million for him. If we paid 1 or 2 for him, or even 5, and we got the performances, most people would have been delighted with that. But fans put a quality in against a price tag, and it's completely unrealistic. These days, a £5 million player is more like a £1 or £2 million player in terms of, it's a bit bargain basement. 11 gets you potential from a decent league. Arne Engels will be playing it in Bundesliga, at the lower end of Bundesliga, for at least a season when we signed him. But that, we were buying potential. Has he realized his full potential at Celtic? No. But he's still, 21, 22, maybe? 22, I think he is. So, his full potential will not be realized for another 2, 3, 4 years. That's long after he's moved on from us. So we've got to, as fans, we've got to get out of it. And I've talked about this a lot. There's an absolute contradiction in the Celtic support where we go, we've got to spend more money. We can't be spending 1, 2, 3 million. We've got to spend big money to get players in. And then we spend it and go, but not on him. I want a world beater for 11 million. I don't want I don't want the market I want market value for my 11 million. I don't want a young potential a player with loads of bags of potential. You know, that's just started doing it in the Bundesliga and has got a long way to go and will take time to come up to full standard. I want peak Ronaldo for 11 million, right? This is the mentality of the fan base, right? And until you change that, players are going to get a hard time, right? Engels has had a lot of grief over the 2 years he's been with us. I think, thankfully, that sort of period where he was out in the second half of the season, where we really struggled, and then he came back in, and even like first game back, he's barely, you know, first full game back, I think he played 20 minutes, and then he was in the first team after that. And from then on, and he's not a robot, like, right? He's still coming back from injury and all of that. His performances took that midfield to another level. He was the first on the press after Dyson. He was the one that sort of made things happen and was always looking for a forward pass. And really, if he doesn't come back into the team, I think we're done for at that point. And there was a multitude. I'm not saying it's all in Engels. There was a multitude of things happened. Dyson hitting form, etc., etc. Other players coming back from injury. AJ was a massive addition, but any one of those three things that happens, AJ doesn't come back to fitness, Engels doesn't come back to fitness and form for both of them, and Dyson Maeda doesn't hit the form he hit. Any one of those three things doesn't happen, we probably don't win the league, and we probably don't win it. We almost certainly don't win a double. So, I think the fans have got to sort of adjust the reality. If we're gonna, I think we should be. If we took 30 in for Engels, we should be going and buying 4 players with that. You know, 10, 8, whatever. 2 6s, and suddenly we spent 30 million on 4 players. And if all that spending money should do is reduce your risk a little bit. Yep. So at 1 and 2 million, some of those will hit, but they're all a gamble, right? Even 11, 15 million. Like, but you know, Man United signed players for 60 and 80 million, and it hasn't worked out, right? So they're all
3 million price tag and lower is a total gamble, Paul. It's like you might get an Edrin, you might get well, I really say you might get what's his face? Our laddie we spent 5 million on Belarusia. So I mean, but the reality is he should have been probably a £3 million sign, and we just totally balls that whole transfer up. But that's the thing. Under that price tag, it's a total gamble, and that's the sort of the price point that Rangers have been playing in for years, and some of their players have been absolute dross. And then the other compounding problem with that is that you sign these players, you're then stuck with them, because then how do you offload them? How do you get rid of them? So not only are you signing a gamble, but then if it doesn't pay off, you've got all this extra wages and tying up capital, which you could have, if you went a wee bit higher, and you could get something better. Because I mean, I think Rodgers is vindicated to a certain extent. You know, obviously Austin Trusty, he was 4.5, 5 million quid at the time, which seemed like a lot of money for a centre half.
6, I think.
Was it as much as that?
Might have been as much as 6.
I mean, he just scored a goal and woke up, and like he was the partnership with him and Stales that got us over the line and won the double. So I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the quality is there if you spend enough. And the other thing I just wanted to quickly say, sorry to interrupt you, Paul, you're mid strike there, but was that the other problem with Engels with the support base was everyone thought he was just going to be a direct replacement for Matt O'Reilly, and he's a different player. He was deployed in a similar Matt O'Reilly position when he isn't a Matt O'Reilly. He's something different. He's probably a more cultured footballer than even Matt O'Reilly, but we just expected the same thing. And it's like, no. And you also remember Matt O'Reilly's first season didn't really set the heather on fire either. It took him a good season and a half to really hit his stride. So yeah, I just think, bit of have to be realistic sometimes. And in the Engels case, he was very young. He was 19 when he came in. Like, that's young. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of pressure on the shoulders for 11 million quid at being 19.
Yeah.
In Scotland. Yeah.
He seems like he handled it well too. Like
coming in, he's an arrogant big fucker. He's an arrogant big bugger. Like he takes penalties. Like he doesn't seem phased. Like, you know, remember back to Shankland and Halkett, whoever it was, trying to sledge him when he was taking a penalty against Hearts, going, £11 million. And he slots in the back of the net and turns around and just looks at him and goes like, and next, like, you know. So anyway,
and the ability to handle criticism too, like I think Paul and I think Anthony, like, not coming in and setting the world on fire for Celtic when we paid £11 million for him, taking a bit of abuse from the fan base, didn't seem to faze him at all, which some guys, it can destroy them, like, and then you really never see them again. Like that with him, and that didn't seem to bother him. So I mean, good for him as a young kid, like to be able to handle that pressure. And it kind of shows like he's a guy who can handle playing for a club like Celtic, where you're expected to win, you know, every single time out. So I'll be sad to see him go, because I do think he, and I've said it, like him and Dyson got us over the line for me, like those last 7 games. I think Dyson scoring the goals, Engels just being everywhere, and I think Paul, like you said, like just boosting that midfield, which was just getting overrun. I feel like most games, like before he came back, like I'll be sad to see him go. But if we get 30 million or 26 million, even 25, whatever, it almost has to be done. So, which is depressing.
But there's just no confidence that money's going to get reinvested into the squads.
Yeah,
and that's the thing.
right.
It's just going to pile onto the bank balance. Oh, no, we have 80 million or 90 million in the bank. It's like, who cares? It's not, you don't win leagues by having 90 million in the bank. You win leagues by having the talent on the park. And that for me is the issue. Like, if we do not have a positive spend this summer, we are in for a world of hurt this season. And I'm not saying you have to spend money to win leagues, but we need a serious rebuild of that squad. That squad needs, it's not minor surgery, it's not a couple of sutures. Like, this thing needs limbs hacked off and, you know, body parts replaced sort of things. So that costs money, and we have the resources to do it, you know.
I don't disagree, but I don't think we need a net spend, to be honest. Like, we've talked about the players that could be going and the amount of money that could come in for that. If we bring in 50, 60, 70 million on those players, we should be able to rebuild the squad for 40 or 50. They should still be able to turn up.
Though. That seems a lot of money coming in.
They should still. You got more. If it's 60, you've got more than a third of it just on one player. If it gets up as far as 30, you've got half of it of a 60 million pot on that. Like, if Nygren could go for somewhere north of 20 million based on last season's performance and being a first pick at Sweden. You know, there was chat Spurs fancied him. Like, funny money down there. Like, I'm not saying
if Hatate goes back to Japan, you're only getting 3 or 4 million for him. You're not getting much for him.
Well, no, but hang on. If you get 30 for Engels and 20 for Nygren, you're 50 already. Like, you only need to sell the rest. Dyson should be getting at least 10 with the season and his ability. Yeah.
So I'm not convinced Nygren will go.
You're at 60 already. Nygren has to go. Of all the ones we've been talking about going, he's the one I'd be least.
He's the one that you want to go, Paul. Is not necessarily the one that will go. There's two different things there, mate. I know. As a Celtic sport, like he probably divides more.
He does. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Again, we wouldn't have won a double without him, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but he doesn't fit in the way that Celtic want to play football. O'Neill's talking about changing the system for the next season, which would potentially lead to 4-4-2 or 3-5-2 as a preferred system for him. Does Nygren fit better into that system? Possibly, but you still need pace in a Celtic team, because you go forward in big numbers, and therefore you've got to get back when you need to get back. So Nygren lacks pace, and unless you're willing to set up with a system that allows at least one player to do nearly no tracking back, I don't think there's a place for Nygren in the squad or in the team for next season. I don't think he's going to be happy to be a squad player. So I think he probably will go. I guess my point is you sell those 3 players. If you maximize the selling of those, you can take in over 60 million just on those 3 players. Yeah. So you add 4 or 5 for Rayo, and like I say, some rats and mice, you get another 10 million. You're suddenly up at 65, 60, 70, 75. So it's not unrealistic to say that amount of money could flow into the club. I'm not even, if we bring in 60, 70 million, I'm not even asking for us to spend a lot, right? On fees. They can make a small profit, and we should still be able to rebuild the squad if we spend that money correctly. I just think there's no faith that we will spend it correctly. Like, I see a position where we could bring in as much as 60, 70, 80 million in transfer fees. We spend, even if we spent all of it, which I don't think we would, I don't think we'd get the right quality of player. Because who's doing it? Who's doing it?
Exactly.
Right? You're like, You're literally on Sean Maloney and Martin O'Neill's Black Book. That's what you're. And as Anthony said, agents ringing up, going, "I've got this guy. Do you want to spend 10 million on him?"
Yeah.
Like that's the extent of what we're doing. Now we did bring in that scout from Chelsea, who's now been bedded in for about 6 months. I think he came in the January window. I can't remember his name. And he's apparently highly rated. So you would hope that he has been doing some stuff in the background. But yeah, this is a classic example of, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. Fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. They fooled us for years. So until we actually, and to be honest, I'm like, this is our first show for me and Anthony back since the last game of the season, post-cup final, and it'll be the last for a while. I think Gav's looking forward to keeping a bit more time off. So and to be honest, I've been happy for it for nearly a month off. Going for a normal life. I'll have another few weeks off because honestly, speaking about this for the rest, like there was, I know Hamish Carton reasonably well now. I've got to know him over the last few years. How he goes and does that show every day. He'll be on bloody Xanax or something by the end of the preseason.
Paul John Dykes as well. Talking about that every day. I mean, I take my hat off. I really do.
I take my hat off to any of them who are doing it on a daily basis because it's easy to do this stuff pretty regularly when things are all rosy and it's all going well. It's less easy to do it when, there isn't much positivity around and it doesn't look like changing anytime soon. So I'll be glad of this is a little bit of a
we like doing it every week.
a little cathartic session with you boys, but I'll be happy not to speak about this again for a while. Because I've tried to just like all the paper talk and all the gossip stuff. You keep one eye on it, but you're almost better for your mental health if you don't bother, because it's just most of it, 90% of it's nonsense. The other 10%, you're probably not going to make happen anyway. So I said this to my mum. My mum's like in her early 70s and a massive Celtic fan, season ticket holder, all of that. And every so often, like there's a little group chat with me and my brother, and she'll send through the latest rumor. And I had to tell her a few weeks ago. I said, "Mum, stop it. It's doing everybody to do your mental health and everyone else's mental health in the Celtic support if you just forget about transfers until after the window's closed, because by that point it'll be done and dusted and we've got what we've got. Until then, all you're doing is putting stress on yourself that could otherwise not, you could be redirected that elsewhere, or you could just generally be shutting off. We had enough stress last season. During the season, I don't need to ramp it up for myself during the closed season. So my little public service announcement is ignore Celtic transfer rumors for the next 2 months, and try and enjoy the next few weeks. Spend time with your family, do another hobby, find something else, watch the World Cup. Go and volunteer at your local soup kitchen. Just do something else, right? Don't think about the Celtic transfer debacle, because it will almost certainly let us down, and let's deal with that when it comes. There's no point dealing with it in the interim. Anyway, I've had half a beer at now 10:30 a.m. So
nice.
Yeah,
good segue into the beer chat. I don't know, have you guys seen this one?
I think I've seen this online, but I don't know much about it. What's the crack with this?
It's a guy we've had him on the show a couple times. He's on Long Island, New York. Used to be a Philly guy, but he has a brewery out on Long Island, and he brews. It's just like a plain kind of old lager, this one. But then I should have brought the other can down. He does a stout too. It's similar. Looks like one of our like yellow kits that we've worn over the years. Totally stole, and the yellow one, it's a stout that totally stole the Magners logo. It's pretty much on the front of his beer. So I'm like, do you want me to like publicize this too much? I don't want to get you in trouble.
You get cease and desist.
But yeah, so I went up and met with him up in Long Island a couple months ago, and he gave me a couple cases of beer, and I sent some of it down to Chris. Not a lot, but this is my last lager. I'm down to my last one. I got a bunch of the stout left though.
The stout, it had the initial taste was very Guinnessy, but then it finishes completely different than what you think it does. It goes like really sharp. It's really good.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. The next one he's doing it next time in a nitro stout, which
right.
The last one wasn't a nitro. So, what are you drinking, Paul?
I'll just talk briefly about like this is it's called Biggie by Feral. Now this. So I'll give you a tiny little bit of history if you're interested. So Feral Brewing, one of the oldest craft breweries in WA. So WA, a really good craft beer scene. Obviously still relatively young. Feral go back to probably the 2000s, early to mid 2000s. I came out here first in 2009, and this beer, with this brewery, I tasted a white, basically a wheat beer. And I was just like, oh my God, like I've been drinking European lager for most of my life. And I was like, oh Jesus, and the odd Guinness. So what's this? And it was phenomenal. And that and another beer, a pale ale, basically sent me down the rabbit hole that I've now been down for 17 years. And no sign of getting out of the hole. It's very deep now. But anyway, Feral was a real local success story. The brewery sort of owned by local guys, went mad, went over east. And then Coca-Cola Amtel bought the business out and caused a bit of a backlash locally because people were like, oh, you're selling out, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, much like football fans, beer fans can be quite partisan. So we were like, no, this is shit, blah, blah, blah. They'll ruin it, etc., etc. But you kind of, you know, with a bit of, you know, take a step back. It's great for the owners. They probably made life-changing money. Great stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Coke didn't really know what to do. So when breweries get sold, one of two things happens. Either the new owners diminish the recipes and try and make a bigger margin and ruin the beer, or what a lot of them have realized is actually, if you do that, you're screwed. You've got to kind of try and retain the original recipes and just find some economies of scale to make a better margin. So they went with the latter option, and to be fair, the beers kind of stayed at a reasonable level. Just people stopped buying them, like people that like just moved to a more independent local brewery. But they went out, blah blah blah, and I think they never really had a long-term, a bit like Celtic Board again, and they didn't have a long-term strategy. They didn't know really where this fitted, and eventually, the really great news story about this, which is why I'm drinking it much more regularly again, is Coke wanted to offload it. And the original team, or some of the original team, bought it back for presumably a fraction of what they sold it for, and it's now back in local hands and rebranded. Wow. And this beer, Biggie, as it's now been called, was originally launched. It was called Biggie Juice, and like a lot of craft breweries, they played around the fringes of copyright law, and it had Biggie Smalls with a crown tilted on it, and it was Biggie Juice, right? And it was Biggie Juice for a long time with that sort of picture and promotion. Eventually, somebody must have from Biggie's estate must have got in touch and given him a cease and desist. So it was still called Biggie Juice, but they got rid of him, and Feral's basically got a sort of wild boar as the character. So they put like a pig in the tilted crown. And that was still called Biggie Juice. And eventually, at some point, I think when the old owners bought it back, they've done a full rebrand and they've just dropped the juice bit, and it's now just called Biggie. But yeah, amazing brewery, great story. Sort of been through the journey, and they're just a bit of a staple in the industry here. If I've got time, as one other sort of brewery, it's the opposite end of the scale that I wanted to sort of bring attention to. You probably will never get this beer in the States, so it's almost a bit of a wasted story, but it's such a good story. I want to share it, right? So there's they're called, I don't know if you can pick this up, they're called Evil Megacorp, and so the name suggests obviously a huge brewery, and that's the joke. They're as small as you could be. They're like a tiny brewery. So the guy who started Evil Megacorp was a head brewer Other Side Brewing, reasonable sized local brewery, and he decided he was going to do a sort of side project, side hustle, and he was going to create like a nano brewery on a subscription basis. So this is during COVID, I think this probably happened, or maybe prior to COVID. And he just put out about this before. So he put out on a beer page, I'm creating this little brewery, but it's going to have to be crowdfunded. You're going to get all the beers are going to be big, then nothing's going to be under sort of 7.5%. They're going to be tall boys. There'll be, you know, a 4-pack every 6 weeks. But you're probably looking 12, 18 months away from getting your first beer. Sign up's like $300 or something like that. Now, I'd had a few beers. It was a Saturday evening. This post came on a beer page on Facebook that I follow. Perth Beer Snobs. Anyway, this pops up at like 7 or 8 p.m. at night. I'd had a few, I'll be honest. My wife was out, or probably my fiance at the time. And I just looked at this post and went, oh my God. So the guy's called Reese Lopez, really good guy, really good brewer. I was like, well, it's obviously going to be great beer if he's the dude doing it. So I just went, okay, link, bang, done. Forgot all about it, right? And then I was like, oh yeah, I did that, right? So because it was a limited subscription initially, because he needed a set amount of money to get like this tiny nano brewery in a tiny little place to work. And those that were the very earliest people in were basically numbered. So I was apparently the 15th person that subscribed to this thing. Anyway, so the Evil Megacorp name was a joke because it's just one dude. He does everything. So it was originally supposed to be a side hustle. It was originally supposed to be 12 or 18 months. It took nearly 3.5 years to come to fruition. but the thing is, right? So the thing is, he was like anyone who knew anything about the local beer scene knew the dude, right? He was well known. He was well respected. And people just went, well, it's $300, right? Like, and what between 12 months and 18 months versus 3-4 years, like you've written it off after, like you're not. It's it's an example of, you know, it's something for the future. I'll forget about it, right? Delayed gratification. So delayed gratification went closer to 3 or 4 years, and then it turns. So basically, what happened is, he was supposed to be a side hustle. He was supposed to be staying in his job as the head brewer at this brewery, and this was just supposed to be a bit of fun on the side to do what he calls big dumb beers and daft stuff that you wouldn't normally brew as an everyday brewer. But in the course of it all happening, he decided there was more interest. You know, fuck it, I can maybe make this a full-time gig. So that's what happened. So the brewery that was supposed to be tiny ended up being a little bit bigger. It's still really small. It's still just him. Like he literally does the brewing, the packing, the media, he uses, you know, he gets a lot of grief for using AI, but he's, you know, he can't afford a marketing budget, right? So he makes and every so often things happen because it's just him, and because it's still a subscription model. So with the delay, he added a bunch of extra beers in, so everybody felt great that we got more beers than you were expecting to. So it was all great, and the beers are great. Anyway, when something happens, if you're a business like that and you're subscription based, and something happens with your cash flow that you have to turn the subscriptions off for a bit, that's obviously a major issue if that's how you make your money. So this is the second version of liquidity crisis. So if there was a cash flow issue, he would just brew a different beer. And the first one was called Liquidity Crisis. I can't remember what caused the first Liquidity Crisis. I think some kit broke or something, right? So it needed to be replaced. It wasn't in the original budget. So he did Liquidity Crisis 1, sold that got things back on track. The second issue that happened relatively beginning of this year is that, I'm sure this is the case in the States too, but the brewing rules were really they're quite complicated in terms of licensing. So he needed 2 different approvals or tickets to be able to brew in the way he was brewing. He was led to believe, or the information he got, that one of these was sufficient. He only needed the second one, he thought, if it was a cellar door and people were actually able to come to the cellar door and buy beer. I don't know if I presume you have that, cellar doors where sometimes you've got a venue, but sometimes you've not got a venue, but you just allow you to sell at the cellar door. Anyway, he thought you only needed that second piece of paper if you were going to do the cellar door. Turns out that was wrong. So he'd been training for a few years without that second piece of paper that he needed. It was brought to his attention, or he stumbled upon that was the case. He self-reported, and they went, "Yep, you definitely need that." So he had to cease production and cease trading. He had beers in the tank ready to roll, and he couldn't sell them. So he had to pause all the subscriptions, and then he did Liquidity Crisis 2. Because he was able to get the money in for the beer. And he basically said, look, you're not going to get this beer until this is resolved, but hopefully you trust me, it's going to be a limited edition beer. So he did it. So, thankfully got his paperwork done, and he's back up and running. But yeah, there's he's a really good dude. He's got this one called Dirty Gas Guzzler. There's a lot of chat in Australia about a gas tax, we basically give our gas away for free. So the beer tax levy is higher than gas companies pay to sell our gas overseas.
Oh, wow.
So there's become a full campaign, and so he teamed up with a local sort of community board and sort of climate change people, and the beer Dirty Gas Guzzler is a bit of a social change sort of agent as well. So yeah, a really interesting story. Basically, probably gone on longer than I intended, but I just thought it was worth sharing to guys that love their beer.
Absolutely.
Sorry to everybody who came to listen to Celtic and Scotland World Cup.
They tuned out about 20 minutes ago, Paul.
So we went down the rabbit hole. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. But yeah, it's a great success story locally, and yeah, doing a bit of good for humanity as well.
Yeah, I do. I remember you telling me about that before, that place with the subscription service. Like, I think there is kind of those kind of places around here, like when they're starting up. I've never gotten in on the ground floor like that to invest in something that's starting up. But I think you do, like, if you do know the guy, like that he is good at what he does, like, yeah, I would do that in a second too, like jump in, and because I think you would, it would be worth it in the end.
The reason, just to finish that, sorry, the reason I wasn't completely pissed, but I had a few, and it was anyway. Honestly, but
it didn't hurt.
You do these things, and you sort of forget about them, and then you go to sleep about it. It was. I remember my wife. I was reminding my wife, like, "What's this $300 and odd to this evil megacarb?" Oh yes, I've got a story to tell you about that. Yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be great for us. Thankfully,
not a Donald Trump shell company.
No,
it would have been better if you asked her what this $300 charge was.
Yeah. What is this nonsense? The name would have triggered it. Anyway, Anthony was my wife, and I'm very lucky to have an extremely tolerant wife.
The world's most understanding woman, I think, I have ever met.
Don't tell her that.
Anyway, she's not listening to a 2-hour podcast about Celtic and beers, Paul. You're fine. You're safe. Your secret's safe.
Okay, while I'm here, Shawnee, I don't know if have you plugged my end of season playlist for?
No, but I will. I have looked at it. We'll have to do that next. I know you were wanting to wrap this up.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But yeah, it's
I definitely will.
One to mention, or I'll just drop the link in the show if you want.
Yeah, I will definitely. Next time we get on, because I listen to you guys every week, and if you guys would listen the 2 nights later when we're on, you probably hear me regurgitate some of the shit that you guys are saying, because I do, and I do that with, like, I have just a handful of podcasts I listen to, you guys, and I'll listen to Gav when I'm up early, because he starts a little earlier on the Monday mornings. But and the Huddle Breakdown, I'm a big Huddle Breakdown guy too. But I always listen to you guys every week, and I listen to I love your recommendations at the end for music and shows. Like I always say, Chris is my music consigliere. Over the years, he's given me so much good shit. Like and so now, like, Paul, you just a lot of stuff, and I told you, I like my favorite band right now is King Gizzard, which is an Australian band in Melbourne, and I got that from Chris. But I know some of the bands you guys you're always talking about Australian bands and Scottish bands, English bands, and like you got some good recommendations every week, and the shows too. So it's always fun. So next time we do this, we'll have to get into the music. We did a little bit of beer at the end. We can finish it next time, maybe with the music recommendations. But we should probably wrap it up. You guys are starting your Sunday now, so
it's pretty much.
It's kind of a weird. I'm ready to go to bed. I'm sitting here checking on, making sure my son's in the right place, and I'm
should have
like,
mentioned this.
don't drink too much so I don't have to drive somewhere.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this at the start of the show, but we're basically coming at you from the future. So
Yeah.
It's Sunday.
Enjoy your night and your sleep, and you will see where we are at some point in the next few hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm glad we got to do this. It was fun. Like, and we definitely need to do it again. And I'm sure we can pull it off. Well, I know, like I said, it's hard planning with the time difference is a little insane. But yeah, next time you guys can have the drinking night, and me and Chris will drink coffee, and maybe I'll have a beer. But we'll see. I don't mind. I don't mind a morning beer.
We'll see if we can maybe. We'll see if we can maybe schedule something just before the start of the season, because by that point we should hopefully have a team. Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe this negativity will have been all washed away, and we'll all be coming up roses. But I'd be surprised. But it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, but So thanks to everybody in the comments. Like, comments are good tonight as always, and finding us on an odd night on a Saturday night off our normal time. So, and it's a lot of the same people that are always with us. So, we'd love it that you're there. We'll be back Wednesday because me and Chris are, we are just gluttons for punishment. We need a little bit of negativity in our lives, but I think next week will be fun. We have Ben from Cayman Islands, who we've had on before, and David from our Plowboys here. And they're going to be rehashing some of the Scotland in Boston, because both of them were in Boston. And Ben then went down to Miami to watch Scotland play Brazil. So it'll be fun to hear some of their stories, and because we saw a lot of the news stories about Scotland drinking Boston Dry. So I'd like to hear, and I saw some of the pics that David was sending me of, like, I think they traveled up there with 32 bottles of Mad Dog in their cooler, which sounds insane, but I'm not surprised knowing those guys. So so next Wednesday, 8:00, and again, thanks Anthony and Paul for coming on.
Yes, thank y'all.
And we great to speak to you guys.
Need to do again.
Thanks for having us.
So hail, and we'll see you all next week.
Cheers.